I'm always bad at those. But yeah, Alex here, organizer of Chromacon, arts festival, indie arts
festival, yeah.
Here in Auckland, and Matthew Gatland. You went to Freeplay in Melbourne, and you're gonna bring some of that juicy knowledge back to us and share the experience.
Why don't you tell us a bit about Chromacon? Because I'm really gutted that I had to miss it this year.
Yeah.
And I'd like to know what happened.
Well, likewise, I missed Freeplay, so I'm really keen to hear about Freeplay as well. But that's a pretty huge question. But I mean, the simple answer to that is because I come from a creative background, so Chromacon is really a sort of arts festival that I wanted to take part in as creative, and also kind of combining. We have pop culture conventions, we have sort of art markets, but nothing really kind of blending, finding a right balance between those three things. So initially, Chromacon was founded in 2013, and it was focused on illustration and comic arts. But the focus of it was allowing creatives to come and exhibit their work, as well as showcase their self-produced work to the wider public. And the main focus was to keep it free, because the idea was we need to introduce the public here in New Zealand to independently produced work. And so I don't want to put any barriers on that. So it's about accessibility, and it's also about the diversity, showcasing what we can create here. So the development from 2013 to this year's festival, which took place a couple weeks ago, 18th, 19th of April, was that we sort of changed a little tagline to Indie Arts Festival. And that was really out of looking at sort of what the festival actually is. And from my personal point of view, and as well as our team, it's really about independent creatives, not necessarily just illustration comic artists, but also visual storytellers, sculptors, game designers, game developers, animators. Because we've got a lot of cross-pollination going on in our creative sector. So it's about giving an opportunity for the wide public to really engage with people sort of creating their own things. That's pretty much Chromacon.
Yeah, and the artists were able to sell their own work as well, because I picked up quite a few pieces and stickers and whatnot. So.
That's about kind of transitioning from the usual sort of digital outlets to a more tangible kind of form, because there's a lot of people who create webcomics. The webcomic scene in New Zealand is actually pretty good, but people would like to, I think, have something tangible.
You got this book.
Well, we self-publish stuff every year as well.
Yeah. So it has selection of artists that exhibited this year.
Yeah.
And you're gonna give one of these away. We'll just
we'll talk about that later.
At the end.
But yeah. I mean, this is partly as memorabilia, and partly as we publish it for properly with the National Library and everything, so that it can be collected in the public libraries. So it's the work is actually in the public space, and so there's the festival continues throughout the years as well.
You mean the work of the published book? Because in terms of you say in public, not to confuse with the public domain, where the art is still owned by the artists.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. I mean, it's in the public libraries. So when say kids or people interested in art go to the library, there's actually something there. This is New Zealand works. Yeah,
and a few international guests.
Yeah. I mean, that was because I've really believed that we are kind of in a golden age of creative, being indie creative, and this, it's definitely much more mature overseas. So we really want to kind of continue to bring over really good creatives from overseas to have some cultural and creative exchange.
So what is the format of Chromacon then? These international artists do they talk? Like what actually happens?
Right. So, okay, what's the best way to explain this? So so they exhibit at Chromacon as an artist. So they're just among the other New Zealand artists. So there's no sort of like, here's the special guest section, and then here's everybody else. They're just together, like on the same floor. But we launched a more industry-focused event this year called Chroma Connect. And that was out of a response to the first year where we had a bunch of discussion panels and talks at Chromacon, but they were more designed towards the public, because the event is a public community event. And people love that. But then you had students and sort of aspiring creatives or even professionals who sort of said, like, we really want to kind of delve deeper into the actual technical side of things or just the industry side of things. And you can't really find a balance between the two. So we launched this sort of separate one-day event for those kind of discussions. And it was a good opportunity as well because we invited 4 international guests over this year, 2 from the States and 2 from China. So yeah, that really kind of helped us bring together a program that was more focused on the actual creative sector.
Yeah, and that's kind of like the awesome part about it is it's starting to reflect more what these big conferences do overseas, where you have like your talk sessions and the experience sharing, and then you got the exhibit. And like I was mentioning last time, for us as indie developers, being among the indies, sort of just like you're saying, they're all together, and the kind of camaraderie that happens when like on the show floor is a really cool thing. Like I was at the show, and there's all sorts of things happening, like artists passing around, like there's always art exchanges, the swap artworks, and a lot of the artists are doing work on the spot. So like someone that does live drawing of just random passerbys, or does commissions and stuff, and or just like funny pictures and like passing them around each other, so like little games and things. So like
we would love to have more of that, because what happened this year, we actually did collaborate with Wall Streets. So we had some live games, but we were actually going to do it outside on the square, but it was the forecast. We had a freak weather week. Like it suddenly became winter all of a sudden. Like it was autumn, but it became winter. So we had like storm warnings and stuff. So we had to move everything inside, and that kind of changed the games we were going to run. But I think ideally, like in the future, it'll be cool to actually we can curate like some kind of some games that incorporated out like the actual artists who exhibit at Chromacon.
Yes. Yeah. So I remember we talked about that, but the timelines were very tight.
Yeah. But that would be cool as well. Yeah. But it's really about like interaction and exchange, and sort of building and sort of an intimate environment to do that. Like the vibe that I've always been really I've always loved was like you have finite exhibitions, but the opening night is always the what you want to go to, because it's really chill. Everybody's once you have drinks, everyone's really chill, and you get the artists there as well. You can talk to them about the art, and you can talk to other people about the art, and that's the kind of vibe that I want for Chromacon, and not sort of just here's the work and then demand people to kind of go and experience it, but there's nothing in the middle for people to kind of like find out more about it.
Yeah, there's always that first night of the exhibit when you sort of get together and go go out for drinks or a party or something. Same with the Australian Games Week or GDC. Just like first day is the biggest sort of like kick-off party for all the parties, but because it's like a multi-day event. So like there was a gathering at the first night. It was really nice to just meet everyone before everybody got tired by the end of day 2.
We're still sort of definitely still playing around with the format, and I'm definitely keen to hear Matt talk more about Freeplay as well, like learn from other festivals, because like I kind of just it was a very naive decision I think on my part when I founded Chromacon, so it was just a sort of like a passion project, and I didn't really borrow like point of like I mean in a way I almost said I didn't want to do certain things like compared to other conference or conventions or something. I said we don't want to have like merch stores, because where do you draw the line? If people are coming in to they're having a sale of Batman comics, and then you have indie comics like right beside it. Like, where do you draw the line, right? So I kind of just drew, I kind of just said really early on, like, this is what it is. But then, like, I think it's always good to learn from what other indie communities are doing overseas as well, because I think we're trying to find our way and build our communities and reaching to the public.
Yeah. So what's the? I know you went to 2 days out of. How long is the festival?
This year, Freeplay was 10 days long.
Wow.
And that's very unusual for them.
What's the usual?
I'm not sure. I think normally it is more like a single weekend. Again, I'm not actually an expert on Freeplay. I've only been this one time, and I wasn't even there for the whole 10 days. But this is the 10th Freeplay. So they've been running for a long time. I think they started in 2004, and I think they've missed 1 year or something. Anyway, to celebrate their 10th anniversary, they decided to do 10 days of Freeplay,
nice.
which was a new thing for them and a lot of work. But basically it was 10 days of different events, all kinds of different events. Some seemed a bit industry focused, many were sort of more focused towards the public, and I guess a mixture of both.
What's the industry one you say? Like, what's the different industry oriented versus the indie oriented? Because we've been to GDC, and it sounds like a fairly sort of similar. You got streams for people to like attend. Do they want to learn about the different things? Like, is it similar to GDC or?
So I guess I'll just go through it because I'm not exactly sure how to summarize it.
Yeah, okay.
At the start of Freeplay, there were a lot of online panels. So they were held as Google Hangouts. I was on one about collectives. So sort of collectives of people who make games sort of as a social thing rather than a business thing.
And is that something that we can look up online?
Yeah, they're all archived.
Awesome.
I'll take a look at the program here. So there were several days of panels. By the time I went over for the final weekend, there were a few big events. There were parties in the evenings. The one that I think you'd be really interested in was the Freeplay Fate, which was sort of a market where game developers had stalls and they sold things sort of related to their video games. It was really interesting. I'm not actually familiar with the term. I think here we normally call them galas, but it was sort of like a school gala or something where people have little stalls and everything's very homemade.
Like we have Zine Fests on K Road.
Yeah, I guess it was a lot like that.
Like Zine Fest,
Zine Fest.
Yeah, in fact there were a few zines there. So that was really interesting because while games used to be sold physically all the time, now generally indies usually sell their games as a digital thing. And in a way it's actually harder to sell a physical game. Or at least in my opinion, I think a lot of people don't even have CD drives in their computers anymore. I definitely don't.
No.
So CDs are cheap. You can get a CD for 20 cents when you buy them in bulk. But they're sort of an old technology now, and you can't get a USB drive for 20 cents yet.
Right.
So how do you actually sell a game? One of the stalls at the Freeplay Fates had bananas with download links written on them with a marker pen. So you could buy a banana and it comes with the game.
Yeah, but that's interesting because if you actually eat the banana, it's on the peel, right?
Yes, it's on the peel.
So
yeah, of course.
how do you keep that?
So you unpack it and the thing is inside.
Yes, download it first.
Yeah.
And there was somebody selling CDs and a lot of other interesting sort of homemade merchandise, low budget stuff. Some people were just showing their games and weren't trying to sell anything.
Yeah.
So I really liked that event. I thought it really captured this feeling of sort of indie creatives. It was a bit messy. It's all the stuff I'm into with Pop-Up Arcade. And then there were other events. There was a party with indie games from around the world on display, different rooms with different styles of games. So things like Nidhogg, games you've probably heard of, Smith Sport. Then on the last day was a more formal event held in a cinema. So we sat down in seats and we listened to people speak. And that had a series of talks including one with the creators of Crossy Road.
Oh yeah.
And this was sort of the festival at its most formal and most sort of industry flavored, where it's more what I'm used to from the industry events here and at GDC. A series of talks, because Crossy Road made a lot of money. There was like some discussions about making a lot of money, which didn't really come into the rest of the festival.
Yeah. You always have that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always something at the back of people's minds. It's like, this is great, awesome, I want to do this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yes.
I think it's a fair enough discussion.
Yeah.
It is, and it is an interesting
But
thing
as long
to
as
talk
it's
about.
not focused on it.
But for Freeplay, that's one corner of Freeplay, and at the other corner, during the Freeplay Fete, I went to a workshop about cutting open soft toys and putting buttons in them and turning them into controllers for weird custom arcade games. So it's sort of full spectrum.
Yeah.
I guess everything around making games is included.
Yeah,
That is awesome.
that's cool.
Is it held all in one space? Like like GDC has different buildings and you have to go...
No, it's not. I went to several different places around Melbourne for Freeplay.
Okay.
So some of the events were held at, they call it Acme.
Yep.
And I think it's something like the Australian Institute for the Moving Image. So it's kind of a museum. It has exhibits about films and video games from Australia. And it has some good event spaces they used. But some of it was also held at a university. The online panels are obviously just on the internet. And the Freeplay Awards ceremony was in a bar somewhere. And sort of
It's just the one downstairs from Acme.
No, it was a completely different part of the city.
That's where everybody goes up to PAX.
Yeah. No, they went to a bar, again, just some other part of Melbourne. I don't know why. So it felt quite spread out. And I assume, I don't know, I guess it's been running for a long time and a lot of different people volunteer their spaces.
Right.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. How many events did you go to? So you went to the more kind of market gala-esque one.
I went, yes, on Saturday I went to the gala thing. I went to a party organised by Hobby Garden, so an indie game party. On Sunday there was sort of the main event. They called it the Freeplay Symposium, which was where the Crossy Road devs spoke. That morning there was another event that was sort of more anyone can give a talk. Series of talks, a bit like an unconference. Yeah, so there's probably another one I don't remember, but that was at least 4 different events I went to over the weekend.
Yeah, that's cool. Like you were able to cover quite a bit in the 2 days.
Yeah, and it was also really fortunate because I met a lot of the indie developers over there. And there are a lot of them, and I didn't really know they existed.
Yeah, way more than we have here.
Yeah.
So we met a few at PAX as well.
I went to a place called All Day Breakfast, which is kind of a co-working space for creative game developers. And they have a room somewhere. There must be, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 people who work there permanently. But it kind of became the place for those of us who had traveled to Melbourne for Freeplay. We would go there and hang out with them. That was really cool. Just to see these. Yeah, I don't think they did many collaborations. I think they were mostly working on their own projects, but together in a shared office with lots of board games and, tea.
Did you manage to check out the arcade?
No, I didn't get to the arcade.
Yeah, because that's a really awesome place to check out as well.
I imagine that's a sort of more formal,
it is
bigger
like
budget co-working space.
Oh, so this is a working space called the arcade.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you mean like an actual arcade.
No, like it's the collab space in Melbourne.
That's cool.
Yeah, we need that kind of space here because like similarly to sort of Chromacon philosophy where you just like come in and sort of work on.
Do you feel? Well, there's 2 parts to that question. If we want to talk about it, like one is like, do you feel indie devs here like? Because have enough to sustain themselves in that space, and secondly, like, is there even how much would Jack cost in Auckland? Because things are really expensive. Probably it's really expensive in Auckland.
It's insane.
So
Yeah, I think like the other day I saw a thing on the internet where it's comparing prices of what you can get in Auckland versus what you can get in France. It's for some really tiny 2-bedroom thing.
Yeah, isn't
like,
the average
on Hangout you can get like a castle in France. So,
yes.
Just go to France and just
mainly,
like buy a castle. That could be the co-working space.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we at Frogshark had an opportunity to get an office space without any cost. Our friends were like had a portion of the office space they weren't using, and they offered us to sort of move in and set up.
Yeah.
And it's a lifestyle thing that you have to sort of choose, because like as indie developers we kind of don't adhere to a particular schedule or anything like formal work style, and you know, like it's hard to work 8 hours straight, like come to work 8 hours and then you're never like fully productive like that. So we tend to work in chunks and sort of keep that spread that out. And sometimes, you know, like you work at night and you're on a roll and you want to stay till 4 a.m. and finish it off, and it's that kind of working style doesn't work with an office. So we find that it's easier for us to work out of home. It's way more comfortable. You like wake up, you know, you prepare, and then you just walk over to your desk and start working. So yeah, it could be that. It could be that as well. Like that's also a barrier to that sort of.
Yeah, but then for you, there's quite a lot of you. So for me, most of my projects are on my own, and I definitely wouldn't want to get up every morning and go to an office either, because I love the flexibility. But I would love a co-working space where I can sometimes turn up when I'm in the mood to talk to other people, or even if I've got a problem I'm stuck on.
Yeah, that's the important bit of having that community, and so coming to a space where you can share.
Yeah, you can bounce ideas off people.
Yeah, so here we do have a monthly meetup, and it's been going forever, and it is a really good place to come with things you want to talk about. But it's also only once a month. That's a long time.
And it's quite disconnected from that working environment where, you know, potentially someone could be working on an amazing like Unity plugin or something that solves everybody's problems, but you know, there's no sort of exchange of those ideas and those technologies sort of happening yet.
Oh, I wanted to talk a bit about the Freeplay Awards as well, because that totally caught me by surprise. Earlier in the year, we went to GDC, where they have a massive awards show.
Just like MTV scale.
Yeah, it's the most incredible
IGF
thing.
and Game Developers Choice Awards.
Yeah.
And
IGF is an indie
game festival.
Yeah, and seeing that for me was it was quite inspiring, because I've seen the website that lists the games that win, but actually realizing it's sort of like an awards ceremony with someone in a tux and
but they're totally not serious. Like, not a serious tux.
No.
It's a tux, but the person's still a game developer.
Yes. Yes. But just seeing that was huge, and I found that just really interesting. So at Freeplay, they also have awards, and it's very different in that it's very small budget. It was held at a bar. You know, the room was very crowded. Everyone was standing up with their drinks. But still, they had awards. They gave out awards for, I guess, graphics and audio and narrative and design, the other things you give out awards for. And it was just really cool seeing them celebrate their industry that way. And it kind of got me thinking that maybe one day, in less than 10 years, maybe we could do some not big fancy video game awards, but some little video game awards that sort of gets the industry together and talking about the cool stuff we do.
Yeah, for sure. Because last year we went to, when we went to PAX, one of the nights was the Australian Game Awards, like a proper one. And yeah, that was like a big venue sponsored by Epic, you know, like a massive bar tab, and the only place where you see all the developers like drunk together dancing, which never happens. But I'm imagining that is like very, very different to what Freeplay would be like. So and like the kind of things they're celebrating, potentially.
Yeah.
That sort of spontaneity. And
Do they get people to submit their games and then judge their award, or do they nominate?
Again, I don't know.
No, I'm just curious. Yeah,
because you had arts awards.
Yeah, we had an arts award this year, and that we're still really trying to build on that idea. Like we tried so many different new things this year for Chromacon. So art award was one of them, and that evolved out of our art competition from the first Chromacon. So what happened there was it was a really open competition, but it had two categories: illustration and comic arts, and people submitted sort of the best work, like best illustration or best comic that they've done over the past year. Like that was sort of the criteria, and we had a very sort of diverse panel of prolific artists judge it, and we announced it sort of just at the end of the day, but not many people. Well, actually, there's a lot of visitors sort of caught it at the end of the day, but the artists were either exhibiting or busy packing out, and then most of the recognition I think came from when we put it online afterwards and said, "Here's who won." So I really felt that we should actually make it a thing, because then people said we didn't have the artists said we didn't have chance to sort of connect, much chance to talk to each other as well over the day. So we hosted awards this year, sort of try to kill two birds with one stone really. One, give people a chance to talk about their work, because that's the context, right? It's like always like your work is a finalist, and just talk amongst each other and also give that some proper recognition. Even though it was also very it's not the flashiest thing in the world. We hosted it at Upper NZI, which was where you guys were actually. It was all the event, sort of more hands-on events space upstairs, and we kind of just moved things to the side.
That's the one super kind of thing that persists across every event that we've been to, is you have this exhibition or an expo, and you go there, you pack in, and you exhibit for the whole day. Like the public comes in, and you interact with the public, and it closes down, and there's no time, there's no space where all the participants can get together and sort of just meet each other and hang out. And because afterwards, people are, you've been there for 9 hours straight, and you just go home and rest, or people splinter out into groups that they already know and go into the parties and stuff. So just having that at any PAX and GDC and whatnot, it's good to have that time when everyone can
either an event like a awards evening or maybe a preview night. That's a different subject. But talking about the awards night idea, I'm pretty curious. Because initially I was thinking we could move into, if it's a competition, then have a theme where people actually makes new content for it, and then we judge it on the theme. Because it's really very, very hard to judge people on a genre. Also a medium, even an illustration. What's the best illustration?
What difficult. You guys had acclaimed artists and whatnot on the judging panel.
Yeah, but it's still very hard, especially when it comes to comic, because you got obviously there's the art aspect, but there's also the storytelling aspect as well. And I imagine I'd love to have a games category next year. And that's also very hard, how do you judge?
Yeah, well, it was hard.
Games in general, you need subcategories.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like necessarily maybe we don't have enough.
Yeah, it was hard to get people. It was quite last minute, and we just don't have enough developers who have things ready to exhibit. So even we're not really ready.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like it might be similar to how our illustration category always gets a lot of entries, but then comic, it's also it's always scary to me, because I know people always submit at last moment, but it's still really scary to me, because it's a week away from the deadline, and then there's less than 10 entries. You're really scared. So I really wonder what will happen if we actually do a indie games category, or is it a matter of doing that for a few years and then moving into actually best graphics, best gameplay, best story, Can we even leap straight into something like that? Like that's.
So I suppose it depends how many games are released each year in New Zealand, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
Or not even released, like the Game Jam games.
Yeah.
Like there were quite a lot of interesting Game Jam games at the Global Game Jam this year, and there are a lot of people participating.
Do you guys? Well, you participated, right?
Yeah, we made Whale Bus. We were showing it at Pop-Up Park.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are really cool.
Like, how is that judged? Like,
it's not.
It's not judged.
Ludum Dare has like community voting.
Yeah.
But Global Game Jam is just participation.
Yeah. So do you feel like we could do a jam next year for Chromacon maybe?
Actually, that's something I forgot because I wasn't there for it, but part of the 10 days of free play was a game jam.
Oh,
that was
nice.
for the first 3 days. I'm just looking at the program here.
That's really cool.
Well, it's funny because the weekend of Chromacon was Ludum Dare, and we were like, we wanted to participate, but obviously we're exhibiting as well, so...
Oops.
Yeah, I don't know, like... It would be interesting, because just like the illustrators on the floor, they're drawing and stuff.
Yeah.
Potentially having, general public is never exposed to how games are made and stuff. And it's not particularly fun looking at people just, work on their computers, so it's not... I don't know, but maybe.
Well, like something like, the 48-hour film fest is really huge every year.
Yeah, we have a greater film culture.
Yeah, but you sort of can look at that and sort of learn from where people.
What I love about the 48-hour film fest is that weekend I see people filming just as I go around my life.
Right.
So I saw some people across the road, who live across the road from me, filming something in their house.
Yeah.
Saw something at the train station the next day.
Yeah.
And it has that visibility, even if you know nothing about the film scene, you will see people making movies that weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And that isn't quite true of the game jams, where most of us stay in one building.
Yeah. But, I mean, live streams, Twitch.
Yeah.
That sort of reaches out in worldwide, but again, it's not really reinforcing our local scene, because, there's hundreds and thousands of people making game jam games on those weekends, and a lot of them are streaming, so...
That's true. I mean, this is slightly on a tangent, but in terms of while we're talking about how we expose, we get more people interested in what we do, I really feel documentation is super important. I think it's harder now to kind of just give people something and be like, try this, especially if you have a price tag on it. And especially if there isn't a almost like a live performance aspect of it, to kind of get people interested immediately. So we're talking about game jams. So we're all sitting there doing nothing. It's very hard to sort of, like you said, there's people out there filming that's really interesting just from a spectator point of view.
Yeah.
So, in terms of, I haven't finished the Double Fine adventure game yet, but I finished watching Double Fine adventure documentary. But that kind of just goes to show how powerful documentation is, I think. Especially video, good video.
Spectacle.
Yeah, you put a story, in a way it's funny because you put a linear storyline to a very non-linear
Yeah, but process. Seeing people film isn't completely non-linear, right?
No,
so you're sort of observing, and you can walk around the people with the cameras, and you can follow them or not, or stumble upon them. So it's being participant to something that's happening.
Yeah.
In that sense.
I mean, how did you find out about Freeplay? Is that something you've always wanted to go to?
I found out through Twitter, where I guess a lot of people and a lot of indies talk about things. I mainly wanted to go because last year their keynote speaker was Erin Robinson, and I'm a big fan of her work. So I was like, I wish I was there. Yeah. So I went this time. And
did you choose sort of the weekend on purpose, or does that just happen to be when you're free?
It happened to be when I was free, but it was also when the most events were happening at the same time. Okay. If I could have, I would have gone a bit earlier. Then I would have got to go to another party as well, the SK Games party. I'm actually really enjoying these parties. I went to a few one in San Francisco as well, where people generally show indie games. They're usually multiplayer. They're usually like quite low budget games. Sometimes there's a few sort of bigger budget games in there as well. But I think just because local multiplayer isn't that mainstream at the moment, it's a good environment to show indie games.
Yep. It's good. Yeah.
Yes.
We get emails from across the world sort of requesting Sori to send them, because they're like gathering with their friends and have 20 to 30 guests, and they have a big list of local multiplayer games they want to play, and it's a thing that's going to be way more prolific in the future.
Yeah,
definitely.
Just even before it goes mainstream, though, it's the best way to get a lot of game developers together and, having fun and also doing something sort of relevant to the games industry. So I would love to, no promises, but I think I'll try and organise or convince someone else to organise a games party during the New Zealand's GDC this year. I think that would be really cool. Like with Pop-Up Arcade, we only show local games. And that's really important for showing people who are not in the games industry that New Zealanders make games. Yeah. That's the message of Pop-Up Arcade. Yeah. But there's another thing, which is more for people who are already in industry, to just hang out and play the world's best local multiplayer games from all over. And I'm really keen to organize something like that.
I think that's really important, for sure. In a way, then you can show people how we can close that gap, right?
But it's also just super fun.
Yeah,
local multiplayer games. We have a big Steam list for just local multiplayer games where we just get together and play, and just for no reason at all, because it's just fun. It's a fun time.
Do you feel arcades are going to ever come back?
Well, I don't know. Arcades in the 80s sense. Special places where it's...
Yeah, because actually when you mentioned arcade before...
Not point-up games, no way.
Right.
But play spaces, potentially, could be a thing. Yeah. People go to the movies, right?
Sure. Because you mentioned arcade before, then you started talking about co-working space. And in my mind, I thought that was literally an arcade where you can
Right, well, the logo is an arcade cabinet. But
that kind of just blew my mind.
It is interesting. There are now 2 escape the room businesses in Auckland. And 2 years ago there were none. So that's a thing. It's... it doesn't feel like an arcade, but it is a game. You pay money and go and play.
Yeah, we've had... what's the horror one? Spookers for a while. And it's also... It's a passive sort of...
it's not very interactive.
Yeah, so
you can't expect it to walk through the space. Yeah.
But still, it's a play experience, right? Yeah. I'd say it is.
Yeah.
And... Yeah, it's interesting, but coin-op machines gone forever. It's
it's
people
freemium, right?
have all of those on their phones, and they can spend if they want.
It's in-person freemium.
Yeah, right? they can spend the coins if they want on their personal arcade. Yeah. But compelling people to, like you say, bridging the gap, having a free accessible space, and I don't know. Everything costs money, but it would be awesome to have a public play space for video games. Because libraries they lend games and stuff. I'm not sure if they have consoles and things. I think does the Auckland Library have a...
I don't know if they lend consoles. They definitely lend console games, and a few libraries lend PC games. I think some of them have stopped because no one was borrowing them.
Yeah, because if you could
borrow them, wouldn't you need serial codes?
I don't know.
Nowadays.
When I was a kid, you could borrow PC games from the library, and there were no issues.
Yeah, but if even in the library having a console set up with a screen.
I seem to remember reading about a Minecraft night.
They do. Somewhere. The Central Library, I think, has a Minecraft night.
Yeah. Yeah. That wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah, the problem I think with those is they automatically become kind of babysitting, autonomous, sort of automated babysitting spaces because parents drop their children off and go about their business so that children can just stick to video games so they can come back and be sure they're still there. And that's what happened to us at Chromacon. There were lots of kids, which is good, but we at times had to ensure that they stopped playing and let some other people have a go because the same group would be, playing for an hour straight, in the less busy time. And it kind of like feels like parents just drop them off, not wanting to deal with their children for a little bit so they can enjoy the artwork or something like that. But regulating those spaces in a way that's not, not like that.
Do you feel like that you don't have that necessarily have that or other? I mean, obviously there's the age issue, but also you don't have that problem at something like PAX because like if there's a line already, people know that I need to let the next person in line.
Well, definitely for those situations is also you at PAX. It's like I don't remember how much is the ticket, but it's like a few $100s for a ticket, and like for the 3 days, and you want to go and check out as much stuff as you can. So people come and they don't actually expect to stay; they want to have a look and stuff. But usually the more people are crowded around your booth, the better.
Right.
So like the more people think, there's heaps of people, this must be good. So they stick to it, and there's more and more people, and it's actually good. It'd be way more difficult if people just like empty booth. And that's a general consensus of like before going to PAX, I searched up for all the articles on Reddit and Gamasutra of people sharing about their exhibiting experience, and everybody says the worst thing is empty booth because nobody wants to come up to an empty booth.
Right.
It's that psychological barrier of being by yourself, being scrutinized as you interacting with something. Because some games are not really exhibition friendly. Like I played a few games at IGF Space at GDC, and it was awkward because you're being observed, and it's the kind of game that has like a personal story experience or something. So obviously it's different for all the games, but
Sorty doesn't really have that problem. So it's
made for just silly group of people coming up and jamming it.
I think what we would do is like run like a tournament or something, So
specifically,
so
once we have technology like in the game for those things, we'll start doing that.
So, were there indie games at Chromacon this year?
There were
2.
We would definitely love to see more. I mean, it just came down to an issue of like venue.
And last minute sort of.
Yeah, we had 1 floor last Chromacon, and we had 2 floors this time. And that was still not enough. Because we had 76 exhibitors the first year. And then this year, like it's 100, easily 100, probably more. So that was the whole lower NZI, and we used upper NZI for events and screenings. So it was like 1/3 of it was for screenings and talks and stuff. So. But then because of the rain, that was the main problem. Because we would have a whole bunch of stuff in the square, but it was going to rain. Right. So they moved over to the upper NZI, and there was just not enough space for indie games. And also, like you said as well, there's not many that are exhibition ready at the moment. So
it's more. It's also not that the games aren't ready, but people aren't. We don't have a big scene in New Zealand. A lot of people are making small things just for personal learning experience, or sort of dipping their toes, or just not comfortable. Like
also, there are other opportunities. So, like I showed things at Digital Nations and at Armageddon, and I know a few other people who did that as well. And because games take a long time to make, if you've already shown it at 2 events and you've got lots of feedback already, and you're still maybe a year away from releasing, you don't actually get that much out of showing your game a 3rd time.
Right. Yeah.
Like on
depends
the scale.
What kind of game?
It does, and it depends how quickly it's evolving. But it's not like an artist who might actually sell a piece of work and make a good profit. If your game's still a year away from release,
it takes a lot of effort to exhibit anything.
Yeah.
But at Digital Nations last year, there was quite a few developers.
Yeah. So again, I'm thinking maybe all those, there's not a whole lot of new games, and I imagine some of those developers are saying, I've already exhibited this a few times now, I need to just carry on working on it.
Yeah, like if we had the same amount of developers at Chromacon as we had at Digital Nations, that little upper NZI space would all be taken.
Yeah.
Taken up by developers. That's how many we had.
Yeah, which I don't have a problem with. We just need more venue space next time, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah. No, but definitely, like we would prefer, or I mean, I definitely personally would like to prefer to. I mean, that kind of adds to our work, but definitely it's about keeping the spirit of the event. So we pretty much work almost with each artist because it's curated, and it's not because we want to push people out, but rather help people because it's right now it's being biennial, so it's like once every 2 years. So. And we put so much effort into it, and we want to get as many people from the public as possible. So we want artists to be able to kind of actually bring something that will make it meaningful for themselves as well as the audience. And a lot of people do, like they have projects that they work on for ages, and they just really want to showcase it somewhere. And then there are those who really kind of need that extra push to kind of bring a body of work together. To be like, this is for example, a story that I've written, and here's some pieces that I've created, or this is a comic, or people they're working towards making a comic, but here's the world that I'm developing. So when people ask you oh, what is this? You can actually have an answer to that question. A lot of people don't, because they're used to maybe the arts market format. It's just here's stuff for sale,
stuff to buy,
just to buy. Yeah. Whereas we want to foster a conversation, so.
Yeah, I think it's where potentially the illustration and art community can actually learn from the gaming community because, artists are used to this. Here's my work. Here's my portfolio gallery. You can buy it.
Yeah,
that's where the interaction sort of ends.
Yeah,
where indie games now developers can't get away with not being out there and not interacting with their audience. So. The only way games we know about the games that we know about is through Twitter or friends or people we follow, and only because they are themselves putting themselves out there and interacting.
You're right. You don't really buy indie games, right? You become a fan.
Yeah.
Right. You don't just buy one to try it. If you're going to buy it, then it's going to be because you're proud of it and you're going to tell everyone that you play this now.
For indie, I was going to say developers, but I think for creators in general. It's you are the brand.
Yeah. So
it's not just about one piece of work. You're the brand.
Yeah.
So potentially that's the kind of direction that the illustration, and the arts.
Well, I think that's the only way we can.
It's not the only way, but it's the new paradigm.
True. Yeah. Well, nothing's black and white, but I think it's the best way we can achieve creative independence. So, because how do you, actually get people to be interested in your work as opposed to, you're always being stuck working on someone else's work. It's because you actually have something that people find special, right? So you have to actually communicate that, whether it's your work is professional enough to actually just say that on its own, then that's the best scenario.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you still have to answer that question, right? It's what is this? What do you do? You have to tell people that.
And with an uprising of things like Patreon and Kickstarter is already not that sort of accommodating to these needs of personalizing the kind of
I think
the story.
They're tweaking a little bit now because you got that story thing now. Once you finish your campaign, your page becomes a whole
a timeline.
Yeah, timeline, and I think you can I think there's adding more functions to do that. It's a bit late. But that was I think that was the main problem. There's no connection between the campaign and what you do next, or where the project even goes. It just kind of ends.
Yeah.
And there's they're definitely the Patreon is really good at that because there's a continuity to it all.
Yeah. So what was the most, like, the difficulties? I know you can probably talk for hours about the difficulties of setting up Chromacon, but it's like,
well,
the main thing that,
the main thing is, like, ironically, after we changed our tagline to Indie Arts Festival, it's like, the main difficulties are the same difficulties that any other indie creator would face. And that's, how do we stick to your core beliefs and your core ethos, right? But still be self-sustainable. Because, things cost money in life. So, and, it's like we can't just... Because I feel like Chromacon is important for our community, but so we have to have that responsibility to actually keep it going if we get people on board with it. And, that also means, we can't just keep, like, we have to find some way to make it sustainable, because otherwise, it's, this is expectation, but then I can't, like, if you can't fund the damn thing, like, on a consistent basis, then it's, you're risking the same thing. It's like, should I go indie and work on my comic or game? But then, a year later, it's like, oh no, I need to go back to full-time work because I need to pay my rent. That's the same situation, I think, a festival like us would face.
You invested a lot of your own money into it.
Well, that's good because I believe in the festival the most, so I have to put my money where my mouth is, right? But hopefully that, with the success of this one, because, I believe in it, so I would do that. And it's proven to be a worthy investment because we had way more people. Some have over 4,200 people. I think we had 1,700 the first year. So it was worth, introducing all these new events and making it 2 days, making it 2 floors, and it was worth exploring, other independent mediums and creative practices, and that's something we really want to do. So yeah, like, it's the same thing, because at the end of the day, it's about showcasing that, like, it's like, it makes a difference.
Yeah.
And the first thing is just, showcasing that the public actually cares about it.
Do you know, like, not that it's about the money, but do you know if many of your artists find it profitable, just in pure money terms?
Where our survey is running at the moment, so if you did exhibit, you should definitely fill that out and let us know. Yeah. But I have heard really good things.
I feel like, well, obviously that's not exactly what it's about, and a lot of it's about exposure and community.
Yeah.
Like, it's always easier to make money when you're helping other people make money. Right? It's that makes a lot of the numbers really simple.
Sure.
And yeah, I'm really keen to hear how the artists found this.
A lot of us have told me definitely that they've done pretty well this year at Chromacon, and I think it's also about finding people who believe in the long term value of independent creatives in New Zealand, because what that means is we'll have original IP coming out of New Zealand. And that's, just we're actually going to talk about money and industry and monetization. It's like IP is the most valuable thing at the end of the day. And that's something we really lack here in New Zealand. Like, not just talking about one specific industry, but just in general. So, but we're way, that's way too far ahead for us, all the creators at Chromacon as well. Yeah. Although, ironically, you get, this, a lot of, really prolific creators who their day jobs is not necessarily fully independent. So we had 4 designers from Widow Workshop, and they also have their own stories and stuff that they're working on, which could be fleshed out into proper projects. But so they're working on their own on that, and that's just, I think, because we don't have enough resources for all of their projects to immediately kind of hit the big stage really quickly. So yeah, so right now I don't think it's necessarily. Well, I would love all our exhibitors to make money of Chromacon. That'd be awesome. But it's also about if we partner with someone, it's about them believing in what Chromacon could do for our community and for the creatives, as opposed to sort of immediately would the exhibitors or would the visitors like buy your product like next day kind of thing, you know, because it's the same thing. I think we try.
Yeah, and I think that's true of everyone. And with marketing, where the first time somebody sees you, they don't really notice, but when they, you know, the third time somebody sees you,
it's like in the back of their head. It's like, I heard about that somewhere.
And so if someone sees you retweeted into their Twitter feed, and previously they've seen you in the flesh, that tweet's suddenly a lot more relevant to them. They're, I know this person, I've seen them.
Yeah. So first time people can say it's a fluke. Even I think it was a bit of a fluke. But second time, I think, we faced a lot of challenges, but we got past them and was much better than I think anyone could have anticipated, like even me. So I'm really looking forward towards the future events, and like definitely Freeplay sounds awesome, like because they've been doing it for 10 years, and it sounds like they've kept their sort of core values really intact, and that's really amazing to me. Like I'd love to find out more about what they do for sure.
So what's the plans for the next one? Like what do you need to make the next one happen? And happen next year, or is it gonna be a 2-year thing again?
I can't fully commit to next year, but we're working on it. I would love for there to be one next year, even though some people have said that the 2-year format is also really good because that gives people time to, like you mentioned, to create work. But at the same time, it is a curated festival, so like I like to be actually more, I don't want to say stricter, but more work with people more closely on that. Like as in sort of like, what are you bringing this year? Like, and what's your, like how has your work evolved? What are you actually doing now? So that like people
just should to raise the bar.
To raise the bar because I think 100 exhibitors is actually probably like the good scale for us now anyway. And we want to introduce more like say developers so just the Chromacon format, like in terms of having an exhibition plus there's like a booth in front where people can do work and sell art, like that at 100 it's probably like already that's a good number. So I think doing it next year wouldn't be a problem. It would be a matter of like kind of curating it more closely. The main problem, not main problem, the main things we have to achieve first is one, I like the event to be more well funded in advance as well, so that is not always like a huge, I won't say burden, but it means we're not able to deliver the event that was as good as it could be because we spend too much time on figuring out like, this funding application didn't go through. What do we do now? Like, and instead of actually like, okay, let's focus on the event because ideally that's what should happen. So I think if we wanted to go yearly, then definitely more time needs to be, focused on that.
Find the right partners.
Like it's not even a matter of money. It's actually about like if you're going to do it yearly, then you have to have a level of consistency and then quality you have to deliver on. But that being said, even if we don't do it yearly, I think the most important thing is able to continue the momentum of what the festival actually wants to achieve. And at the moment, what we want to do is like we're setting up like a charitable trust to facilitate the festival, but also carry forth what the festival needs to do, which is support and empower and like activate user and creatives.
That's good because then it's not like Chromacon.org and then suddenly you get a partner and you go off in the more commercial, so the trust always makes sure that it's all the core values are preserved, even if someone is to take over organizational role, because I imagine you want to at some point step down and actually create some of that as well.
Well, that's definitely true. I would love to actually take part in Chromacon, ironically, but also the sustainability thing means I will actually be able to do what my official title actually says, which is like it's like creative director or something. But I would like to focus on the creative part of Chromacon. because I do too much other stuff at the moment to support the event, because that's the only way we can make it happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely would like to. I mean, that's the other thing. If we do it every year, like want to bring more international guests, and that's another matter of funding as well. Yeah, but that worked out really well for us this year, which I didn't touch up on. But because you know the national guests.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So.
Yeah. For those who don't know, okay, did you? Oh yeah, you weren't there, Matt. Yeah. So yeah, we had 4 international guests. Two from the States. One was Jo Cooper, so she's an illustrator, but she's also a fine artist. So, and she's really young, and like it was amazing because she's essentially doing, I think, what a lot of illustrators like would love to do. Like it's like that sweet spot between, I think she works about 8 days a month on sort of art direction for like advertising, projects, and then the rest of the time she spends on her personal work, and then it's like exhibitions and stuff. And she travels around the world, and I think she said that she wants to go fully mobile, like, in a couple of years, where she just travels around the world and works, like, remotely. Like, that, I think, is an amazing state to be in for an independent creative. And she's achieved it, like, quite a young age. So, it was, I was really, really inspired that she could come over. And then something like that, like, because, a scale where we're at, something like that's only possible that we had support from Jim and Sandy, who are also artists, and they own Tech Print Art Supplies. So it's like finding partners like that who believe in the event, and because they see the value of it being artists themselves, to bring Jo Cooper over. And then we had Jackie K. Jang, who's the art director of that game company, and obviously being a personal fan of Journey and all that game company's games. But he kind of blended his own art background with obviously indie games development, and like he kind of gave like the keynote at Chromacon Connect, and like a lot of people really enjoyed it, and yeah, like it's about bringing people like that who's able to kind of showcase that independent,
like where
you could be. Yeah. But you also where you could be, and how do you sustain it as well, because.
Getting there is part of that.
Yeah, I mean they've made a really groundbreaking game and really influential game, and they've gone fully independent with sort of ending, or their contract with Sony has ended after Journey, so they've gone fully independent, but they're still keeping it at the scale, or their studio at the scale where they were. In fact,
and also the core beliefs of what kind of games they make.
Yeah, like
similar.
I really wish good things for their next game, because then I think that will put the mark on it. Like because before they were obviously developing for Sony, but with a really strong independent spirit. So communicated it, like their core value really well, and now they're being able to do it fully independent without even going Kickstarter or anything. Like that's pretty interesting to me. And the other 2 guests are one's from Benjamin from China, because he's doing sort of indie comics for ages in the Chinese scene, and he broke into the comics scene in Europe for many years, and a lot of people. He had a lot of fans here as well, surprisingly. But that's really interesting to me, because I always felt that the New Zealand comic scene is much more. It works much the type of work that we create here. Much closer to sort of the European comics scene, as opposed to something like Marvel or the States, or Japan, where very established conventions, whereas Europe is a bit more free, and the independent comics is more. There's a much more bigger culture on that, one winner who's a really awesome mural artist. She did this really beautiful mural at Chromacon, and then she also just basically travels and then creates art. So yeah, it's about bringing people like that who's established themselves on the sort of core values of being an independent creative, but able to be self-sustainable. And we want to do that for future Chromacons, definitely. Like you say, how can we close the gap and see what other people are doing overseas, and find out what we're really good at and how we can get there.
All right, I think we're running out of time, so we'll put all the links to your Freeplay Google Hangout and Chromacon, and what do you want to do with this?
So this, like I mentioned, this is the art book we self-published this year. Just keeping in line with that self-produced work aspect. So yeah, it has all the creators from who exhibited at Chromacon 2015. And if you go to our website, Chromacon, that's Chroma, as you see here, and then .co.nz, you'll see up the top it says subscribe to our newsletter. So if you subscribe within the next week, we'll just put you into a draw to win one of these books.
Sweet. All right, and I'll see you next time about Pop-Up Arcade.
Cool.
Thanks, guys.
See, thanks.